Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our phone-in series, our show in which we get you guys, the listeners, on to have a chat, a discussion, a debate sometimes about a different topic surrounding the club. We're going to be doing a number of these across the course of the summer transfer window, and I'm very excited to be doing these once again with you all. It's good to get some new faces on, some familiar faces on as well, of course, too. But I'm looking forward to this one. Do make sure to drop a like on the video. Of course, subscribe to the channel as well if you're new. I'm going to drop a link to the phone-in into the chat box if you'd like to join, and we'll try as best we can to get as many people as possible onto the show over the course of the next, hour and a half or so. But we'll jump into the chat, and also kind of need to lay out the law of this, basically. Of course, first of all, if you do want to join us, you need to be over the age of 18. You need to have a webcam, a quiet place to record, all that lovely stuff, because it just means that everything runs a lot more smoothly. And today's phone-in is all kind of based off of this morning's show. This morning we did a show looking at, of course, as we always do, the 8 a.m. shows, updating you on all the Arsenal latest. And we talked about Caicedo, we talked about Chelsea stepping up their interest in the player. And I think that has sparked something of kind of the focus to be drawn towards Edu, towards the focus on how quickly Arsenal are able to get their business done, and whether or not people have confidence in the Brazilian to get Arsenal's business done this summer. But we're going to hopefully be joined by plenty of you over the course of the show. But let's bring our first caller in, and it's Zach. How you doing, Zach? You good? You well? Can you see me, hear me? Oh, you can't hear me. Zach, what I'll let you do, I'll let you sort all this out, and then I'll bring you back in. Okay, mate? Sounds good. We'll get Zach back in shortly after he's sorted out some of his. If you leave me a message in the private chat, Zach, then I'll sort it out. Let's go into the chat box. Paul says, fans are getting rude about the speed that we are moving at. The transfer window isn't open, and players may have multiple offers, so choose which is best for them. Don't get angry because we don't get the number ones as well. Of course, one player can only go to one club. We also, of course, have plenty of comments coming in from others that aren't as happy. Ron says, Edu out. Not particularly happy, it seems. The Nightman's still saying Wenger out. I think he must think this is a show from 2016, potentially. Zach, give me a thumbs up down below if you've got it working or not yet. Yes, we do. Zach, can you hear me? See me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. There was a really awkward moment when I was like, oh no, this is going to go horribly wrong.
I had AirPods in, it wasn't working. I don't know what's going on, so I'll just go.
All good. How are you? Good?
Perfect.
Where are you joining us from?
Disappointed, but good.
Disappointed? So, are you disappointed?
I just think the season didn't go how it should have gone. Obviously, I think like you said in the show this morning, it's okay. It's okay to be disappointed, and I guess I haven't really necessarily recovered from the season yet, but what can you do?
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think I certainly went to the end of the season. My feeling in the immediate aftermath was one of disappointment. That said, my second emotion was one of excitement, because I didn't expect us to be in a title race. I didn't expect us to go that far. And I'm now looking ahead to next season and thinking, well, if that's what we were able to do, where no one gave us any credit ahead of the campaign to be able to do that, and now we're sitting in a position where we've got the potential to add some really fantastic players, which we're going to talk about shortly, then there's something really special that could happen again next season. So obviously you left a couple of comments in this morning's video, got into a few discussions with people in the comments section as well. And you don't seem particularly convinced by Edu right now. Would that be a fair assumption?
I think it's the club as a whole that I don't really feel that way about. I think it's just been many years of disappointment. And I think Arteta coming in, he's done such an amazing job to reconnect the fans with the club. And I'm not saying that the club aren't going to do the work this window, and I'm not saying that they aren't going to be ruthless and go hard. But I think this is the point where if they don't go hard, it could start to fracture the fan base again. I think we haven't won anything in 3 years, and I can see the progress for sure. There's definitely progress, but I think people get confused between progress and success. And success, the only metric really that you measure success in football is trophies. And obviously, I'm very disappointed that we haven't won anything in 3 years. And I think that it could really start to fracture the fan base if they don't show if they aren't really, really serious in this window and go hard and be ruthless and get their priority targets in. And if we don't start to win trophies, I'm just worried that the club could start to fall apart again, like it did in the 15 years that before Arteta came into the club.
No, I get your apprehension as well, and I think that, you know, if we have a disappointing season off the back of something that showed so much promise, yes, of course, I think there is absolutely scope to see meltdowns as we've seen famously in the past. What I think I struggle with a bit is the whole idea that Arsenal are too slow, you know, in the market. I think some of your comments left this morning were like, you know, why haven't we moved for Caicedo, or why have Liverpool been able to sign McAllister? Why have Chelsea been able to get some deals done as well, yet we're moving too slowly? Explain the whole thing about Arsenal moving too slowly.
I mean, I think the past speaks for itself, you know. I think we do dilly-dally a little bit, and I think we do take our time, and we seem to land up not securing the signature of our priority targets, and it gets quite frustrating. So, yeah, that's what I mean by slow.
If I said to you, obviously, Gabriel Jesus was a primary target, Fabio Vieira was a primary target, Jakub Kiwior was a primary target, Ben White, Martin Odegaard, Darren Ramsdale, Lokonga, Thomas Partey, Gabriel, they were all primary targets, and they were all secured under Edu's tenure. Yes, there's players like Caicedo that we went for that we could still go and get. Yes, there's people talk a lot about Dusan Vlahovic, even though Jesus was in discussions before that January window even started. Mudryk obviously was the key one of the last January window. Yes, I understand kind of that there's players that we miss out on, but I think maybe there's an exaggeration on the players that we miss out on. Actually, Arsenal do get a lot of the players that they try to go out to sign.
So sure, no, I mean, of course they get a lot of their targets in, but I'm talking about those targets that are where there's big competition for them, where Arteta doesn't have a previous relationship, or he didn't work with him at City before. All those the big money targets where it's difficult to negotiate, and where it may not be as easy to get as all the other players that we got in the those players that you're talking about. I think, you know, when you want to compete with the big boys, when they smashed down Harbury however long ago and said we're going to compete with Europe's
people that are at the club now did that, you know that, right?
Yeah. But I'm saying they still promised that we were going to compete with Europe's elite, and I get that it takes time, but we just don't. Edu can't. It seems like he can't get you can't sit at the big boy table and put the big boy money down and secure these big boy targets. And if you want to sit at the big boy table, you have to do that. And that's where I feel like I doubt the club a little bit, and it gets frustrating.
I think obviously you mentioned the players that Arteta's previously worked with, Zinchenko, Gabriel Jesus, for instance. But Gabriel wasn't, Thomas Partey wasn't, Ben White wasn't, Aaron Ramsdale wasn't. I just think that maybe you're not giving enough credit to the deals that were done that emphasize kind of the good work that is done in those transfer windows. And all of the work that we've done in the previous transfer, I mean, we spent more money, say, last season than any other season in recorded history of the club. And every transfer window that we've had, especially specifically the summer transfer windows, have led us towards this progression that we're seeing going upwards. Now, hypothetically, if things don't go well next season, we can have a separate discussion then and reflect upon why that happened, sure. But I can't quite get on board with the apprehension around this window and the frustration around this window, A, when it's not yet started, and B, because we've shown to be able to do really good business that's led us to a title challenge last season. Do you know what I mean?
No, look, I'm not saying that. I'm not frustrated about this window yet at all. Still, there's really nothing. I mean, nothing's happened. It hasn't even opened yet, like you say. And I think it's just in the past, it's been that way. So I don't feel like there's really any proof that the club are going to go big. And yeah, like you say, they've spent their biggest window 2 years ago of the club's history. But at the end of the day, after that window, I mean, we've spent maybe 160 million around there in the past 3 windows, which is, 165 million, and it's 55 million pounds per window. And I just don't feel like that's enough. And
well, I mean, I'll read back to you the what seasons we've had. Last season we spent 22-23, 170 million pounds, around 170 million pounds. The previous summer we spent 80 million pounds. The season before
I'm talking about like
50 million pounds.
January and the summer, and we spent 50 million in January and 115 million in the summer, and nothing in January before that. So 165 million in 3 windows. It just doesn't seem like it's a club desperate to win, And like I said in the beginning, I just feel like the fan base will start to fracture if we don't start to win. I feel like we have a young squad, and I just feel like we have to win things along the way, even if it's a Carabao Cup, FA Cup, on the way, so that you breed a winning mentality in the squad. Like, at what point is this fan base, or at what point does the process go bang? At what point can we demand trophies? At what point will the fan base turn around and say, hold on, wait, we haven't won anything in years? I just feel like us qualifying for the Champions League, never really competing for the Premier League, winning an FA Cup here and there in the past 19 years has not been satisfactory for the club. And that's what broke the club in the beginning. And Arteta's done so much good work to connect us again. And I'm just worried that the club will fall apart again. I'm really, really worried. And, I love this club. I've supported this club my whole life. And obviously I want to see us succeed. And maybe my approach is a bit more aggressive and a bit more negative in a way. But it's, I just, I want to win stuff. And I
want to win stuff too. Like, I agree with you that the club in the period from say 2006 through to up until probably recent, you'd say, based upon the size of Arsenal, you think a club the size of Arsenal should have won more. I think that obviously does ignore the context of the other teams as well. The spending of Man City, Chelsea, what Manchester United have done.
Like we don't have any money to spend though,
They have had money to spend, and they've spent it pretty poorly. If you look at it from, say, prior to 2020, I'd say, Arteta's come in, Edu's come in, in that period after 2019, in 2020, when Edu took full control of kind of the transfer rig with Raul Sanyehi moving off in that summer of the pandemic. But since that point, the business has been good. That's what's led us to progress and get to a point where we challenge for a title. Like you said about the fact that we spent around 50 million in the last 3 windows, that's not enough. But I think that takes kind of a specific time frame. But if you look at the last season, we spent more in the summer and January combined than any other season in Arsenal's history. Surely that shows ambition to spend, doesn't it?
I mean, they're not spending money. Can't say that, but I just think we need more. I think 115 million spent in the summer just wasn't enough. I think we needed a little bit more, and I think we did meet our target of the season, to make Champions League football. But surely in the past 3 years leading up to all of this, the club would have expected to maybe win a Carabao Cup, maybe win a FA Cup there.
You know why I don't think they should expect it? It's because of Manchester City. I don't think you can expect a trophy, because tell me who the favourites for the Carabao Cup are next season.
I mean, City are probably favourites for everything, but
right. And because of that, that's why, in my opinion, you can't expect the trophy.
Look, no one has the divine right of winning, obviously.
No. I think we should aim for a trophy. Absolutely. But I don't think you can have an expectation of a trophy. I think that Arsenal are going to be in a position where their expectation is to better compete with Man City. That's my expectation for the club, to better compete with City so that we can get closer to them in every single regard. But for me, you can't expect a trophy.
Hopefully, but surpass them. But
how do you think we surpass them?
Sorry?
How do you think we can surpass like a state-backed club like Man City are?
I think by spending money. It's not like the Cronkies are poor. They've got a lot of money. They're the third richest. He's the third richest owner in the Premier League. He's just his net worth just went up 2 billion or whatever it is. He invests a lot of money into his other sports franchises, building the most expensive stadium, giving out the biggest NBA contracts, and Sometimes I just feel Arsenal are on the end of the list, you know, of priorities for them. And
You would swap last season with Chelsea's season.
sorry,
would you have swapped our season last season for Chelsea's season?
I mean, absolutely not. No.
Well, they spent around 4 or 5 times what we did. But if the whole thing is about spending, do you not think we need to be a little bit more precise about how we define what we need to do rather than just spend more money? Do you know what I mean?
100%. But the football's changed very quickly in the past few years, you know. Spending 100 million, 115 million, I don't believe is enough. I mean, that's how much one player is going for. It's crazy prices, I agree. I mean, I can't believe how much money is in football these days. It makes my head roll. But, I mean, what can I do about it? Like, I'll just sit on the couch and watch. But I think the players are just going for that price. And if you want a player and the club are demanding a fee, that's their valuation. And sometimes you maybe have to pay over the odds. Sometimes you maybe have to give a bigger contract, you know?
I think that's what hopefully we'll see. You know, from the sounds of things, Arsenal are going to go with a 90+ million pound bid for Declan Rice after the Conference League final, and we'll see how that goes. Fingers crossed, indeed, absolutely. And it seems that they want Caicedo as well, and you know we can only hope that that is going to be the case. I think obviously we'll have separate discussions and further discussions after the window's closed, and we'll reflect on what we've done. But Zach, I really appreciate you jumping on. It's not the easiest thing to do. I know you don't necessarily agree with the points of view, so I have absolutely utmost respect for you for jumping on.
One more question.
Go for it, mate.
When, for you, is it like, when is it okay for us to demand trophies, you know? And I mean, when is it okay for us to say, no, it's enough now? Like, you know, it's been 3 years. Like, when can we expect a trophy? And like you say, no, you can't expect a trophy, and no one has the divine right of winning. But, I mean, yeah.
I think until you're on the same level as City, you know, until you are the number one club in the country, is there an expectation? You know, City go into a season and their expectation is to win every trophy that's on offer. That's their expectation. And I think if we're all honest with each other, Arsenal aren't City right now. We're building towards trying to get there. And if we get to a level where we're on par with them, then we can have that discussion about, look, we have got a team that is as good as City's. You know, we've got a squad that's as good as City's, and we're spending to the point where, because it does, at the end of the day, spending only gets you so far, because you can only have your 18 or 20 man squad, right? You can only have 20 players on your match day. If your 20 man match day squad, if we had a discussion and said that's on par with what Man City have, our 20 players that we can use are on par with Man City's. Yeah. That's when I can think we can sit here and say, I demand that Arsenal now are in a good enough position that we should be winning a trophy. But right now, until we get to that stage, we're on par with that best team in the country, I can't demand it. What I can demand is the club do everything in their power to try and get to that level. That's what I would be looking to demand. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying that the club, obviously, I have a bit of a more impatient approach because of how we've looked for the past 19 years. And I just think that I just feel the club need to do what's required right now in order to start competing properly at the highest level in Europe. You know, we're going into.
What we can both agree on is that we hope they do it this summer.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't want to be embarrassed again. You know, 93% on top of the table and breaking negative records, and you know, So I just really want us to compete at the highest level, and I hope it comes in.
Zach, thank you so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate you jumping on.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you, mate. Lovely stuff. Let's bring in our next guest. Thank you, everybody in the chat box, by the way, for leaving some very, very kind comments about Zach. Fortunately, not everyone. I would appreciate if we could just, you know, it's all about respect with these debates. We may not agree about differing opinions, but it's always about making sure that we respect everyone's viewpoints on this. I'm going next on my list. Next I've got up is Anthony. Anthony sporting what is one of the nicest hats I think I've ever seen. How are you doing, my friend? You good? You well?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, Matt. I'm very good. I appreciate you supporting some really good causes by getting that hat, mate. Very much appreciated.
No worries, man. I always listen to your show in the morning. So, yeah.
Thanks, man. So tell me what you jumped on to talk about.
This window is going to define Arsenal's season going forward, of where we finished last season to if we can improve in terms of challenging City. You can look at the signings that we brought in, like Trossard, Kivior, and Jorginho, and they massively helped us to get to a point where we needed to get. It was just unfortunate that the team dropped off as soon as Saliba got injured and then Zini got injured. I think those two were pivotal for us. And, bringing in Rob Holding, he's been there for years. And as good as he was, I thought that we should have brought in Kivior sooner rather than later. Like, for argument's sake, the West Ham game and then the Southampton game, I think we should have brought him sooner and see where we would have ended up going forward. But going back to the point regarding this window, the guys, they really need to support Mikel Arteta, which I know that they do. It's, can we get our targets over the line? Obviously, if you look on Twitter in relation to the news that broke last night with Agartha that was supposed to have gone to Chelsea, and then that deal fell through, and they're now turning their attentions to Caicedo, which obviously the situation, what happened in January, that we bidded and they said that he was not for sale. So how is Arsenal going to react to that? That's the first thing that, he's someone who, if we got him and Declan Rice in, we wouldn't need to worry about that midfield for a good couple of years. And, the meltdown that was going on, I'm not going to lie, I was a part of it too, to say, are these guys going to, how are they going to react? Is Eddie now going to finally prove myself wrong and others in regards to getting these deals done for the manager? There's so much in terms of you pivoting around to, if you don't get your first target, to get your second target. So, that conversation would have to come around later on down the line if he doesn't get these targets in, because we're now in the Champions League. The last time we was in the Champions League, I probably was in college. Given I was in college, that's how long ago, we were in the Champions League. And if we do not get these players who Eddie, I watched one of his interviews after Arteta, Odegaard and Saka won the awards, that they're looking for level raisers. Now, if we don't get these players in, who potentially could we get in that will be level raisers for the squad, because we'll be fighting on four fronts. And my only issue is that if we don't get these two in, I feel that Arsenal may struggle, to try to keep up in regards to, like, Chelsea. They're going to be buying players, Man United, Liverpool, also Newcastle. It's not just a top four race anymore. There's 6 teams there that are now competitive. So are we going to have that opportunity to progress from what we did this season? Which, not just myself, but a load of fans are thinking that, Caicedo, that needs to happen, as well as Declan Rice, as other players that we need to. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens this week. If Chelsea does bid in for Caicedo, are Arsenal going to react to say, okay, are we going to go in for him as well? But then I'm hearing reports that Caicedo is worth up to 100 million. Like, well, McAllister went for half of that price because he had a release clause and he went to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Caicedo, is he worth 100 mil? No, he's not worth 100 mil. But what Brighton did in regards to getting him to sign that contract, they have the leverage to say, this is how much he's worth. Is he the same as Declan Rice? I would say no. I'd say between 60 to 70 mil in terms of that type of price. So if Edu can go out and get these targets, it should be great. But we've seen what's happened in the past in terms of, the Mudryk saga, Yao Felix, who we're interested in. I don't know how far we got, if he's going to bid for him. Also the Rafinha deal, what happened with that. So it's not just myself. There's a lot of people who do feel that Eddie now has to go out and get these targets to support the manager. Arteta's done wonders. He only can do what he can do, and it's down to Edu to back him going forward with that, to say, look, we're here to stay. This wasn't a one season wonder where we finished second. we need to improve on that going forward. Every season, you need to improve. You know, as the saying goes, it's harder to, you know, once you get on top, it's harder to stay on top because you have to work that much harder just to stay there. So it's a big summer for him. You know, it's a big summer for him. He's got a lot to prove to the Arsenal fan base, because if we don't get these signings in and we get signings that are not at the level of Rice or Caicedo, Arsenal fan base is going to be divided again, and it will be a shame that Arteta's worked so hard with the squad that he's got. I'm not taking away anything from Eddie and Arteta in regards to the signings that they brought in, because you could see from last season to this season how much we've improved going forward in terms of challenging. When we lost to Man United, we bounced back. When we got to Liverpool, we drew. West Ham, we should have won that game. Southampton, we should have won that game, and then we dropped off, and the level is not there in terms of, if these players are injured, we can bring in level raisers who, again, can take us to that next level. The drop off on our bench is not that significant. So, you know, he has got his work cut out of the season. I'm just praying and hoping that he does prove me wrong. You know, he's on holiday at the present moment, and well,
he does the magical things on holiday, mate. He's pulled off some magical things.
Everyone's just like, you know, he should be working on these targets. I'll say, look,
he is
entitled to a holiday. You know, let's not get wrong. He's entitled to his holiday. And there's other guys, you know, he can do deals when he's abroad. Just hopefully what transpires in the next couple of days, obviously the Europe, the Conference League final in terms of West Ham, hopefully we can get that bid in day after or by Friday. That bid should have gone in. Now, if this Caicedo situation with Chelsea, we'll see what we do if we are actually going to go back in for Caicedo, which in terms of the price tag, will Arsenal go back in and see, okay, we'll pay 70, 80. If not, who are we going to move on to? What, Lavia? He's another person that I know that we've been interested. I don't know if that's going to be a genuine alternative target. So, yes, it's just a big summer. It's just a big summer for Eddie. You know, he's got a lot to prove to the Arsenal fan base to say, look, he can get these major deals. He can get these major deals done. Even though we got Zinni and Jesus last summer, these guys, we need to see these, you know, some key signings coming, some marquee signings coming going forward. So, yeah, that's just my point on it, you know.
I don't have any questions for you, Anthony, because everything you've said, I agree with. So, you know, it's a massive, massive summer. And, you know, the expectation for me is that we have to improve the squad, that we have to get it in a position where we can better compete with Man City in every single competition next season. And that is what's on offer. Anthony, I really appreciate you jumping on and speaking powerfully about what you believe in on those topics. So I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Tom. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Anthony. Appreciate your time, my friend. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Much appreciate Anthony jumping on. Let's jump to our next caller. We've got Albert from Albert JTV. How you doing, my friend? Yes, Albert, how are we?
I thought, Tom, I would at least take myself off mute first.
It's a good plan to start off. Yeah, it's a good plan.
Tom, I'm well, man. I saw your comment on Twitter that your chat box was cooking, man. I'm thinking, oh, what's that? What's he done now?
Morning. My comment section this morning was, it was special. Let me read you a comment out.
Please.
Someone in the chat box, which kind of gives me perspective on also while we're doing this, if I can now find it. Where is it? It was from was it Dave? Basically, I'll find it in a second, but here we go. I found it. It's from Dave. Dave Thompson says, is this conversation a bit premature? Nothing is signed and it's all speculation about Caicedo. Why would you go to Chelsea at the moment? And the reason why, and Albert, you kind of alluded to this, the reason why I am doing this conversation is because on social media and in my comment sections, there is a real anger, I feel, that's already growing around, and frustration and angst about where we're at and who's in charge of doing it, be Edu or whatever. There's kind of already building this pessimistic angst, if you like, about it. Where do you sit on your confidence about Edu and the club being able to pull off a window that we need this summer?
Right, I'll answer your question in reverse. So, in terms of my
words in order, because that would help me understand it. But, yeah.
Right, no, fair enough. So you're right, Tom. You're very right. In terms of my confidence, I'll be honest, Tom. I'm not really sure. I mean, I've said before that Arsenal fans have debated for many years, or that every summer window is a big window, and I'm like, no, this one is, because they're back in the Champions League. So more pressure is going to be applied in terms of there's not a lot of, I don't know if trust is the right word in regards to Edu. As you mentioned, as you alluded to about your show, I've chucked in concern as well. The thing is, us as Arsenal as a club, we don't throw the book at it. Yeah, you might look at individual signings, but in terms of the conference, like I said, I'll be honest, I generally don't know until it actually opens, which opens a day before my birthday, which is in a few days' time. Yeah, so it'd be interesting, Tom. That's the shortest answer I can give in regards to the transfer window. In terms of the anger for Edu, by the way, I mean, Tom, what is there to really say? I mean, what's the concern? Has anybody else brought anybody else in yet?
Obviously, we've seen players who were on a free and who had buyout clauses, like Nkunku, like McAllister. Brighton have brought in James Milner and Dahoud, who are both on free. So there are players moving with pre-contract agreements or with the activation of release clauses, but we haven't seen, say, a bidding process go on whereby, I don't think, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've not seen, a club say bid for a player and the club have accepted the bid and that deal's been done. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's happened yet. No.
I mean, are they upset? I'm aiming this at Arsenal fans. Are they upset in regards to the players that have gone in terms of pre-contracts or moved on? Because I'm sure you're not interested in any of them players to elevate us to the next level. And that's no disrespect to the players you just mentioned.
Let me read you a comment from one of my comments this morning. David says, we are pessimistic because we have a well-known track record of not getting our targets, and we all know it. That was from David Ock this morning. I think that it's kind of the angers about the fact that we missed out on, Mudryk or Caicedo or Vlahovic. The Vlahovic one is an interesting one. I don't think it's actually a referenceable example because Jesus was the priority and we were in discussions with him before that January window of 2022. Vlahovic was kind of an opportunity in January that they felt that was too good not to have a go at, and missed out on it because he wants to go to Juventus. So there's a pessimism, I suppose, around Edu. There's some people saying that they would have got rid of him already and brought someone else in to do his job, and they'd have more confidence in someone else doing it. I don't know who that person is, but do you know what I mean? That's where we're kind of at. Yeah,
I mean, even the players that you've mentioned and I've heard being mentioned sort of prior to me coming on, and it can happen, Tom. It's possible. How many of those players have done well at the clubs that they've gone to? I mean, Mudryk is raw talent. João Felix, Rafinha. I mean, I could go on. I mean, if you're upset about in terms of Arsenal not being aggressive enough in the transfer window, that I will agree with, because that's one thing I would like to see Arsenal do a bit more. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get your targets, and I don't think in terms of number one targets, maybe that's what Arsenal do need to improve on that, and we'll see this summer, because obviously we know there's two players in particular that I would both like to see at the club. I'm just being super greedy. I said it a few months ago. I wasn't ever really sure or how confident it may happen. But firstly, I guess I need the transfer window to be open first, don't we? But listen, it's not my money first and foremost, so I don't get too caught up in it. We're not going to spend the amount of money in terms of what Chelsea spent as a ballpark figure.
And that doesn't guarantee success either from the evidence.
Well, there you go. When they finish 30 points or 39 points behind you, I can't remember the point, how many points it is, but I think the only thing I could say, same number. So Tom, I mean, I have to watch back your show, to be honest, or just look at the comment section. But I think Arsenal fans, and Kevin Campbell said this many, many times, man. He said Arsenal fans complain about anything. It doesn't matter what time it is.
I've said that a few times.
It doesn't matter what time it is. But guys, let the window open. We know the players that we want as Arsenal fans, right? We know the players we want. We know the players we've been linked with, and this is not just paper talk. This has got to a point now where, it's about Arsenal being able to get these over the line. If Edu manages to do it, fantastic. But you know what? As key as a transfer window is, there's more than one area we need to address, by the way. And it's not just central midfield. I do think that's number one priority, by the way. But there are other areas that we need to address as well as the central midfield areas.
Yeah, I think fullback needs to be looked at on both sides potentially if Tierney goes, and I think I do want to see a centre forward come in. I'm not hopeful that we will see one come in, but I'm hopeful that we'll see a centre forward come in. Albert, thank you for jumping on, my friend. I really appreciate always when you do. It's very much a pleasure.
Of course, Tom. It's good to see you, man. In the chat, smash the likes, people in the chat. Come on, man.
This man knows. He knows. Thank you, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
See you soon.
Have a good one. Much appreciate that. I'm loving the invention in the chat box, by the way, of who can come up with the best out example. So I've enjoyed things like going out. That's one of my favorites so far. Take me out from Mikey. I've actually been in the audience for Take Me Out, and Paddy McGuinness thought it'd be funny to thrust in my face. Actually, genuine story that actually happened. So yeah, was always a fan of that show back in the day. Let's bring on our next guest. Smiling away at my terrible comedy, it's Wes. How you doing, Wes? You good? You well?
Appreciate it.
I've heard you. You're there. Sorry, your connection just went out for a second, but you're back. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Okay. It's the United States internet quality. I'm sorry, we just can't match you over there. Sorry.
Smooth going over here. Tell me where your head's at, where you're thinking. What do you make of all this kind of doom mongering, if you like? It's probably the harshest way of putting it, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't put a whole lot of stock in all that stuff. Honestly, you're going to have entitled fans at every club. I don't pay them a bit of mind, and neither should you. I do have some concerns about the window coming up, and I have nothing concrete to back it up, but I feel like this window is really going to be a little bit more competitive than past windows, with a lot of teams with a lot of money to throw out there. I like when you previous calling big and improve the situation and a really fierce competition for the Champions League spots for next year. So whereas maybe we were in competition with Mudryk and we lost out to Chelsea with that one, I think we're going to be up against more than Chelsea this time, obviously, for our top targets, Rice, Conceição, but lower for this window than past windows. And that's not to say that I'm going to sit here and demand Edu out if he can't get him. Just the opposite. It's just that competition that I'm really, really concerned about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think the reason why, and people ask me last night, I had someone tweet me this morning, actually, I'll give them the credit. It was Manu on Twitter, who's one of our Belgian football experts. He says, as a long-time follower of the show, I feel like I can express my dislike on how much time you spend on the pessimistic side of things. I get that you don't want to become an echo chamber of positivity, but hearing you frustratingly explain the same thing time and time again is a real shame. And I said that there are a couple of reasons why I do go back over this. One is because obviously the channel's growing all the time and there's new listeners, and obviously they've not heard these things before. Secondly is because I don't want to feel like that I am ignoring a point of view that a lot of people hold, and I feel like you have to give that the time of day. And if people like, Zach, who came on as our first caller, is able to come on and express an alternative point of view in a respectable way, I think that's worth having a discussion about. But Wes, what I can't get my head around is there's genuine anger, like from some Arsenal fans already, about that it's, I suppose, Edu that's the guy that's coming into this window that's taking charge of it and we're making some of the key decisions, or is the guy doing the negotiating? Are they fair to have? Let's not go with anger, because I don't think anger's ever fair. But do you think they're fair to have concern about Edu being the guy that's leading the negotiations for the club?
Are they? You can always have concern about someone, something. I mean, even the best world who are at the top of their industry, can you have concern about something they do? Sure, Bill Gates, whatever, take your industry. But I think that, and I'll play into my age a little bit here. I'm slightly older, and through my age and experience, I've learned that where I was quick and rash to make judgment when I was younger, now I'm a little bit more reserved, wait and see. And there are times to have some initiative and to push the gas pedal. But like you said, the window hasn't even opened yet. All you're speculating on, and all you're getting angry about is for lack of a better word, it's something that you have to give people. Oops, am I still on? Okay.
You're back.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I honestly think that you've got to have something to happen. You have to give them time. You have to at least have some sort of reservation and say, okay, listen, yep, there's going to be a big job coming up. Let's actually wait and see and let it play out. Me personally, again, going back to that original comment of there's a lot of competition. I hope to expect to see more than past seasons, more than past windows. I expect to see a lot of our big business done early, because if you don't, that invites more competition. And that's what I'm going to be concerned about. And that's why my expectations for the window aren't as high as probably they have been in the past.
Yeah, me too.
So, going back to that original question, do they have a right to be concerned? Yeah, sure. You can always have concern. But to say, all the Edu's out, all Edu's garbage, that's, I don't pay that a bit of mind. And if you're going to go that extreme, that quick, this short in the window, and again, the window isn't even open yet, I got no time for that. That's just talk.
Fair enough, Wes. No, I appreciate you jumping on. I'm going to go to my next caller, mainly not because I don't think you're brilliant, but mainly because I'm hearing about half of what you say, because of that US internet connection. But always a pleasure to speak with you. We did hear, I'd say, 90% of what you were saying, so it was all good in the end. You can watch it back and you can have a look yourself.
Right.
Good. But I really appreciate your time. Thank you for jumping on, mate. Have a good one. Thank you to Wes. Much appreciate that. Let's bring our next caller on. Long-time phone-in caller of the show. It's Brandon. How you doing, Brandon? You good? You well, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you, mate? Been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while, isn't it? It's been a while. I mean, if I'd have said to you on the last phone-in show that Arsenal would be in a title race this season, I would have been curious to what you might have said.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have got the reaction that you maybe expected. So yeah.
It was a season of special moments and ultimately ended in disappointment. It's, I think, maybe predicated some of the ill feeling that's gone into the start of the transfer window, potentially. You've obviously been in the background listening to a lot of the conversations that have been going on. Where's your head at the moment with the club, with the window, your expectation, what you're desiring? Just kind of go for gold on it, my friend.
Okay, so if we start with the window, somebody, I don't know who, maybe, all the guys that are watching might know somebody, but somebody needs to be hitting Edu's phone up right now and reminding him that there is a transfer window about to open. We ain't got time for barbecues. I know the weather is starting to heat up a little bit in the UK, but put them utensils down. Take off them shorts. Take off them sandals, Edu. We need you to go out and get
Family show, Brandon. Come on.
Yeah, go out and get some players. No messing around, because in my mind, this is arguably the most important transfer window in Arsenal's recent history. We found ourselves in a position last season where we was competing for a league title, which nobody really expected at the beginning of the season. And now we need to cement ourselves in that position and go one step further. It's going to be difficult because now we've got Champions League football to compete with as well. And the one thing that's been a major disappointment for me since Arteta has been here is our inability to compete in multiple competitions. We see that last season. We kind of, threw a few competitions away in order to concentrate on the league. And then we made ourselves look silly because we didn't end up winning the league anyway. But I just look at it like this. You got Chelsea out here spending 600 million. You got Manchester United that are going to have a war chest. You got, Newcastle as well. Liverpool, no doubt, will spend a lot of money as well. And I just think we're in a position now where players that I wasn't necessarily a fan of at this football club showed me last season that they are capable. Like Martin Odegaard is a great example for me, because I always felt like this guy was never really going to hit the heights that we wanted him to hit. And then last season, 15 goals, 7 assists. You can't, really ask for more from your number 10. With regard him being a captain, we could, obviously have a different conversation about that, because for me, He's not really a leader. But in terms of his overall performance last season, he would be the prime example of a player who I never thought would hit the heights, and he did. Then, of course, you got your Sakas, your Martinellis, Jesus, and all them players that are, and Saliba, what a season. What a first season for Arsenal as well. It's a shame he got injured right at the end. But I look at it now and I just think our squad needs maybe 4 or 5 top signings. And I mean top quality signings in order to go that step further, I think. I look at Manchester City, and if we're striving to be like them, look at the quality and the strength and depth that they've got in every single position on the pitch, every single position. And we, unfortunately, we don't have that, and we need that. And there are certain players in this squad who I think, need to become our rotational players, like Jesus, for me. I know we signed him as our main number 9, but for me, he doesn't score enough goals to be Arsenal's main number 9. I think he would be, a great option off the bench, even to start in certain games as well, because everything else about him, he's an exceptional footballer. He does everything right. The only thing that's a sticking point for me is the lack of goals that we're seeing from him. And I know he was out injured for a period of time, so that would have contributed towards that as well. But I just feel like we need somebody who can score us 20, 25 goals a season. I think Thomas Partey needs to become a rotational player as well. We're kind of seeing towards the back end of the season that he's not really hitting the same heights that he was when he first came into Arsenal. He's very injury prone. He's getting older now as well. He's, nearly, I think he's 30 now. And at some point, we're going to have to replace him long term. So in my mind, why can't we do that now? I look at Chelsea. They went out, they spent 600 million. Arsenal back in the Champions League. I think £300 million is enough money to get us to where we need to be. Fulfill the required positions that we need in order to take it to the next level and compete not just in the Premier League, but in the Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, and, maybe go that one step further and win the league as well. So I just think we need a striker. We need a couple of midfielders. Obviously, with Granit Xhaka on his way out. We definitely need defensive cover as well. And with Kieran Tierney leaving, we're going to need a left back because, again, I don't like to point this out too much, but Zinchenko, great going forward, but defensively, he's not it, unfortunately.
The thing is, I could do a whole separate podcast on what the misconceptions I feel around Zinchenko, because there's no doubt in my mind what he brings us going forwards is on a world-class level. And that man took us in that position. Arteta and Zinchenko combined took us with that to a system that dominated teams, that just blew teams away, that gave us such dominance. And you're right, defensively, he's not it. And in my view, that's okay if you've got the players around him to support that system. And I feel as though when we lost Saliba, that dissipated completely, because then the emphasis on Gabriel to basically cover not only Zinchenko, but whoever he was partnering that wasn't used to be playing regularly, wasn't up to scratch, basically, really cost us. But there's a lot to unpack from what you said. I agree with a lot of it. For me, I spoke about this before, a £300 million summer for Arsenal in this window should not be fantasy. I think that with the amount of money that we could make in sales as well, a £300 million summer or close to it is not something that I would be writing off.
Just
because
can I just address one of these comments in the comment section?
Yeah,
from Chris. Chris says, "Okay, Brandon, how do we get the 300 million? You're selling half the team." Well, Tom kind of pointed it out. We've got so many players out on loan that are not required anymore. Nicola Pepe, you got Lokonga, Rob Holding. We've got fringe players that we can sell. I'm not saying we're going to make masses of money from selling them, but you got to remember as well, Chris, we're big Arsenal Football Club. We're not Tottenham Hotspur. You know what I mean? We're big Arsenal Football Club. We've got a lot of money. We've got a billionaire owner on the board. We've got that Champions League money coming in as well. It's not beyond possibility that Arsenal could go out and spend that sort of money.
I that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. I think that a £300 million summer, if Arsenal were to sell well this summer with Tavares, Holding, Austin Trusty, Lokonga, Tierney, following Balogun, I would sell Eddie Nketiah personally as well. You know, there is scope there for Arsenal to make close to £100 million quite easily, I think. So when it comes to a £300 million summer, is the expectation for a club that's challenging for a title in this current market situation to invest £200 million? Absolutely. And with the way that which Arsenal are looking at Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, those two are going to take it pretty close to 200 million. And we know that Arsenal want to bring in a fullback. From the sounds of things, they want to bring in a creative midfielder potentially to evolve that left 8 role if we wanted to. I personally think that a centre forward like you is something I'd like to target as well. The one thing I do disagree with, and I think where we will come in, is which I will question you on, is and it's actually, I'm glad that you said it, because I think it's something that a lot of people are saying right now. It's what you said first, which was that we need to ring Edu up and tell him that there's a transfer window coming. Because from my perspective, I think that there is such a misconception around what I describe as the tip of the iceberg theory, in which is everything that we see and read on social media or in reports or in journalism, or what I hear in my circles, is the tip of the iceberg. And that everything underneath is always going to be going on. And look, Edu knows that the transfer window's here. Edu knows he's in for a big summer. I spoke to the man myself. He knows there's a big summer coming up, and he is ready for it. And the club are ready for it as well, from what I am told. And they are going into it with the ambition to upgrade this team into a place where they can better compete with Manchester City. So I'm curious to get kind of why you've got this point of view that, say, Edu, for instance, and others aren't maybe doing enough right now.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can explain that perfectly. No problem. Maybe you could be the one to hit him up then if you spoke to him personally. I look at Moises Caicedo, right? And I just feel like, there's teams today that have announced signings before the transfer window's even open. Arsenal never, ever really do that. We're not really that proactive in terms of what we're...
Which examples would you give?
Well, you've never really seen Arsenal announce...
I meant of other clubs this summer that have...
Liverpool today. Liverpool today, we know they've been chasing McAllister for a long while, and that has been, pretty much officially done, announced, job done. And, as soon as that window opens, they can announce that signing, but they're already in the process of looking at other targets and this, that, and the other, right? I just feel like sometimes we wait far too long. We concentrate on one thing, and then while we're concentrating on that thing, not enough is going on in other areas. So we end up losing out on our targets quite a lot, right? We have done in recent years. First choice targets we've lost out on. I look at Moises Caicedo, right? We went for him in January. We couldn't get him. And there was, obvious reasons for that. Brighton didn't have time to replace him. We didn't want to stump up too much money for him. But Caicedo made it very clear that Arsenal, he wants Arsenal. Arsenal is his first choice. Brighton have already kind of established that he will be allowed to leave the club. So why is this deal not already done? This is my question, because, if you go in for the player in January and now you're kind of waiting around and not really doing too much, and then the whole situation has happened with Chelsea where they've lost out on Ugarte. And now we're going to find ourselves potentially in a bidding war with Chelsea, which is not, we've already seen from Mudryk, Arsenal will not get into a bidding war. So I look at that and I worry now, because the sticking point will always be the money. This is perfect for Brighton. Brighton now can get Arsenal and Chelsea in a bidding war, and they will take as much money as they can get from whichever club. You only have to hope that Caicedo turns Chelsea down and says, no, look, I want Arsenal and I ain't going anywhere unless I go to Arsenal. And then, you know, in that case, it kind of makes it a bit more of a different kind of, you know, negotiation. But I worry that Chelsea could just come in and blow us out of the water. They've already shown us, you know, they don't care about how much money they're stumping up, whereas as we do. And I just feel like I said, it's the most important transfer window in our recent history. We can't afford to be messing around. We can't afford to be losing out on our first choice targets. And we certainly cannot afford to get ourselves into bidding wars and then end up losing out on the player in the end anyway. So for me, that deal should already be pretty much wrapped up and we should be concentrating on our next target. Like I say, this transfer window, and I think it's the same for many Arsenal fans. I don't know if you agree, Tom, but this transfer window will tell me how serious this football club actually is. Yeah, are we going back to we're happy to qualify for Champions League football and, you know, that's about it? Or are we actually going out there to compete and to be the best? This is going to tell me everything I need to know. And at the moment, I ain't going to lie to you. At the moment, I'm a little worried, not just with the Caicedo thing, but, you know, I look at the Reece Nelson thing as well. Signing him up to a new deal. Okay, he's come off the bench and he's scored 3 goals, 3 important goals, by the way, this season. But in the long term, is he really what we need to offer in terms of the competition and that to Bukayo Saka? You know, Reece Nelson's been here at the club for a while now. I just feel like it was the easy option for Arsenal, you know, rather than going out and spending 30, 40 million pound and getting somebody in who can actually, you know, compete with Saka and push him that extra mile as well.
I don't know who for 30, 40 million pounds you can get that would.
Maybe not. But I just see it as a bit of a cheap way for Arsenal to kind of do that.
I see why you would think. I can see why you and others would think that, and the reason why is because I think obviously, you know, it's an option that Arsenal have to not spend any money on a position. But we agreed that we think that Arsenal should be capable of spending £300 million this summer, with including player sales. And I think that when we talked about the fact that Caicedo and Rice, who I would like to think, you know, Arsenal want to get both, and from the sounds of things they do, that's going to take you close to £200 million, just those two. We've talked about and we agreed that we need to bring in potentially 2 defenders, a fullback on either side or a right-sided centre-back, you know, and a left-back to replace Tierney. And we've also talked about the fact that both of us would like a centre-forward. And I think that when you combine those other additions with Rice and Caicedo, you're suddenly getting into figures, if you want to then bring in a competitive figure to Saka that goes well beyond 300 million. So I think that's probably the reason as to why the club have taken the decision to renew Nelson. If we're being very honest, it's probably been our best sub all season. You know, he's the one to me that's looked and done the most coming off the bench of any other player this season. And Nketiah has not scored a single goal, for instance, from the bench, which is another reason why I would move him on. But to bring it back, you know, the Liverpool McAllister thing, the reason why you're seeing some deals done is because 2 reasons. One, either their contracts are finishing, which is why Brighton are able to get hold of Mahmoud Dahoud and James Milner, for instance. And the other reason is release clauses. And Liverpool have activated Brighton's release clause for McAllister in that new deal that was signed. There was a release clause that was inserted into that. I'd love for Arsenal to have gone to Brighton already and said, here's 100 million quid. Give us Caicedo. You know, I'd love for that to happen. The reality is I don't think the club rate him at £100 million. And I think actually Brighton are looking for something potentially less than £100 million. What Brighton are looking for, though, is they're looking for a bidding war. They're looking for a situation whereby Arsenal come in and potentially Manchester City come in. We know Chelsea's interest as well. They want, and Liverpool have said to have interest even with their signing of McAllister. They want that. So they don't want this to be done quick. For starters, Brighton do not want this to be done quick because they want teams to come in and they hold all the cards with the player under a brand new contract that they've said yes can leave, but at the end of the day, they are going to hold all the cards with this deal. The Agate thing, the only thing that the Agate thing changes is Chelsea's desperation to get Caicedo. Because actually, like us with Rice, we want Rice and Caicedo. They wanted Agate and Caicedo. It wasn't a case of one or the other. They wanted both. And now they've missed out on one. They're going to go hell for leather on Caicedo, which is annoying for us, obviously, because it gives a greater intensity on that side of things. But as you said, we've got a hope in this side of things that Caicedo says, I want Arsenal. I want Champions League football. Arsenal have already made some real pushing attempts to time me in the previous window. And we've got a hope that Arsenal will go in for him again. With Rice, we know why that's being delayed because we got the UEFA Conference League final on Wednesday. And look, it's all well and good me sitting here saying there's a reason why it's delayed. If Arsenal don't go in the following, within days of that final completing with a big bid, I'm going to be disappointed like you because we need to move quickly to avoid other teams, going for him. And they probably still will. Bayern Munich have crept into the fold as well. So I think, Brandon, what would be good is if me and you return at the end of the window for kind of a reflection on what actually happens to see how quickly we did move for players. If we missed out on players, then what happened after that? How did we reflect on that? How did we change from that? And if we missed out on all our priorities, then there's going to be another discussion about why did we do that and what can we do differently to make sure that doesn't happen, be that a change of personnel or be that just a different strategy. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Brandon, I've got some more callers that I need to get to, but I really appreciate you jumping on and having the time to chat, mate.
No worries. Cheers, Tom.
Lovely pleasure, as always. Speak to you soon. Much appreciate Brandon for coming on. Always respectful and has a good conversation, even though not always has the views aligned with my own, even though some today I think were. I agree that Arsenal should be capable of a £300 million window with potential player sales accounting up to a third of that. There's no reason why a team in this current iteration of the market should not be capable of investing £200 million plus that 100 million for potential player sales. Let's get my next guest on my list. I have put into the chat box, the private chat, the order. Next on the list I've got is Vijay. Vijay, how are you doing, my friend? You good? You well?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. Very good. You've obviously been sitting very patiently, which I really appreciate, by the way. And you've been listening to a lot has been said. Where is your head at regarding the summer, Edu, everything?
Yeah. So first of all, I think people are really in different terms with respect to both Arteta and Edu. In the sense that I think the fact that Edu never has really gotten our first choice players up till now. For example, last year we were going for Rafinha, we never made that happen, and we pulled Lisandro Martinez, we pulled out, and then I think a few other Mudryk, we didn't make it in the winter window either, and Caicedo we missed off again in the winter window. And I think so many misses on the first choice. Not that the second choice was bad. I think Jorginho and Trossard was an amazing cover, and I don't think those two were the reason we lost. And in fact, I think Saliba was simply the reason. I don't know why everyone seems to be thinking as though I remember when Liverpool lost Van Dijk a few seasons ago on that long injury, and they had a couple of defenders missing. They lost a 13-point lead, if I remember correctly, and they lost it to Man City. And so at that time, nobody really said anything much, but but I think the fact that we do not have a deep squad, and the fact that I think to be honest with you, the drop of form, a lot of it has to do with the fact that earlier we used to we still lose the ball all the time. It's just that we used to lose the ball in the final third, and so we had more time to catch up to it. But with Saliba gone, it was so often I've seen Partey come down all the way to our penalty box to collect the ball, because nobody else was really into that progressing the ball from the front. And then so when Partey came down, Jesus comes down, Odegaard comes down, everybody comes down, and so our back line becomes so behind that their press became more effective than ours. And that's why I think if you see a lot of the balls we lost was in the middle of the pitch. Odegaard's 2 misses, Partey is lost, Trossard's lost, and I think Gabriel Jesus, somebody needs to talk to him to stay where he is. He sometimes I feel he thinks he's Messi, comes all the way back, picks up the ball and starts running, and I'm dude, sometimes you're better to playing the 1-2s in the final third and maybe help out there. But coming back to the transfers, I'm just the one concerning factor I do have with Edu is the fact that I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, like Wenger used to have this problem where like he would not deal with like super agents by saying that like, oh, they are just like there to get money. Like I remember Kante deal, which went down because of that. Something like they needed like some extra 5 million or something to the agent fee, so we said no, and look where that has gotten us. But like, but at the same and later I remember Arsene Wenger and Ian Wright I think had like this conversation in which he was saying that apparently Kante was brought to Arsene Wenger like by his coach like multiple times, but that he wasn't sure whether such a small guy can actually catch up with the Premier League or something because of that. And I'm like, I mean, those things we cannot predict, right? Like that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is that Edu in the last year one in an interview said that like, you know, if you what is it? I want players who come there because they want to be at Arsenal and not for the money. And there was some player that he was like alluding to where they said that, oh, like it felt as though like they are there only for the money and nothing else. So we don't want characters like that in our club. The sad part about football right now is that a lot of thing has to do with money, right? And I get it. Like you cannot like just like randomly just go around and throw in cash however you feel like, and like that's where Man City is right now, right? So the problem with that again is that I think now if, for example, if Caicedo comes through, right, if Chelsea and Arsenal get into a bidding war, I have less hope that we will win it, because I feel like especially the Enzo Fernandez deal is a perfect example. Like like Benfica just stood out and they said like I'm not selling it, and then they're like ready to cash out whatever money they wanted. And Mihailo Mudryk, I don't even think I think he's like maybe worth 45-50 million in a really good market, nothing more than that. And fine, like so it's a lot of thing, and I think Edu needs a big win. I feel like this season, this transfer window especially. But more than anything, I feel like we need Gehi, to be honest with you. I don't know how you feel about that because.
I like him. For me, I think that I look at the right fullback position more than the right centre back position, just because I think that Ben White can bring the cover that we need in that right centre back role. I think that in that Nottingham Forest game, Ben White is one of the few players that kind of really, could hold with the progression with how he played in that right centre back role, and it kind of harks back to what we saw in the previous.
Why he did not play Ben White in the centre half, and like try to play somebody else in the former back three or something, because last season Ben White was playing that ball playing defender kind of like a role. So he could have done well there, but like I don't know. And the other thing is like I think with Arteta, I think I'm starting to wonder like if he's gonna get fired at the end of the next season. Because the problem is with him, I feel like mainly I think everyone discussed about this is in-game management is like needs a lot of improvement, and in sometimes I just feel like he's just like obstinate, right? Like he has like a specific system he wants to play, and irrespective of what the player's strengths or weaknesses are, he would still like put that player in the same position. And the perfect example is Tierney, whereas like you could actually have like it's just like how Ben White was bombing off on the right side. You could have had Tierney bomb off on the left side and then have like Ben White cut in back to form the back three. But he just didn't do that, and again, we don't know much. At least I don't know much about coaching football and all that stuff. Maybe he had some reasons to do that, but many a times it feels like he's just throwing things on the wall and see if it sticks sometimes. And one of the perfect example was at Manchester United away game where I think we were 1-1 and there was no reason to change anything.
It was 2-1 at the time. Yeah, we made those 3 subs. Yeah.
Okay, cool, sorry. But I think like we were playing well at that time. Like we did not have the position of the ball. When we did, we were doing okay. But there was no reason for like 3 major attacking changes at that point of time. Especially because like we were playing such a high line, right? So yeah, I'm not sure. Like so with Arteta, I feel like he needs those players that he is asking for right now. And if he doesn't get it, I think it might be another season where we just make the Champions League. Not that it's nothing bad or anything. It's just that I think that's not I think it's time that we change our expectations, because now that, especially after Kroenke came in, full ownership in 2018, they've been investing a lot of money, and it's not the old KSC. So I think they need to put the standards up with that respect as well. But but I think one of the main things has happened is like I just went to Emirates this few months, last month. I was there for the Champions League, Women's Champions League semi-final. Was amazing. We was like unlucky to like get out, and then the Leeds game. But I've never had seen like Emirates like roaring like that. And I think the fan connection is something that's I have to like give it up to the club to actually do so much stuff to actually kind of get back with with the fans and like do everything possible to get their attention back. So yeah, I just hope like Edu. I desperately feel like Edu needs a win. That's just it. Like from Edu's perspective as an ex-invincible, and like I don't want his reputation to be tarnished with this sporting directors thing. And I think Rice should be a done deal for sure. Has to be. I don't know. Like yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Caicedo. The reason why I'm just talking about the right back situation is because I think when Caicedo played in Brighton against us, I think he was playing that right back position amazingly. Like, and he was like inverting into that centre half position as well. And I think that's what maybe Arteta is looking at, in the sense that like he can do that. So then maybe we can just look at the left. But yeah, I think the main thing is like you said, I think Brandon and you were alluding to earlier. Like, I don't think we should say that we don't have enough money. Because I was just checking out that the list of people who we have to get like offload, and it's close to 120 million that we can make off just like by selling most of it at a conservative rate. And I think that plus like Gehi, Rice, Caicedo, and Gehi maybe like a 210. And then I think we need a prolific striker, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure. This year we had like a spread out of like goals from a lot of places. But what if one person does not give us that? Like for example, now Shaka's gone like 14 goals and assists in there. So if Rice is not able to adapt and give us a 7 goals and assists, it has to come from somewhere else. Whereas if you have at least like a 20 goal plus kind of a striker, I think it should be good. And honestly speaking, I would sell both Nketiah and Balogun and then put a buyback clause in their contracts while selling. And I think it's to be honest with you, I think it's people are unfair towards Nketiah, because whenever games that is where he has started, he has actually scored most of them, but he has not gotten a chance. And Arsenal is not a place where you can get that kind of like an opportunity. I understand that, like but I have again, Nketiah is not the reason why we lost the league this year, because when Jesus had the injury, he came in, and it was the same point difference that was there when Jesus left and when he came back. So I think, and he had some really great goals, like the Manchester United goal and the final minute, and like few really good goals. And even the West Ham one was like Ian Riley, man, like that was so good, where he like turned the defender. It was like so good. But yeah, I think both of them I would sell if I could get an Osimhen by selling both of them, like
Oh, I don't know about that, but
I know,
Yeah,
but
you're
I'm
gonna
hoping like
miss
Manchester United
millions.
takes. I'm just hoping Manchester United takes Kane away from Spurs, because that they deserve
Yeah,
that.
me too. I'd say I'd love to that to happen. I don't really want Man United getting a striker at the level of Kane, but if they're going to buy him, it's going to be 100-odd million quid for a nearing 30-year-old forward. So it's only on the downslope, you'd think, from there. But we'll have to wait and see. Vijay, thank you so much for jumping on and saying all your thoughts. I really appreciate it. I don't disagree with really anything. I think that when it comes down to what we need to do, the tactical side of things, what I would say is that Arteta is a freak, as Xhaka puts it in a good way, regarding coaching. If he does something, he's not doing it for the sake of it. He's doing it because they've thought meticulously about it, so much so that it makes us think that they've not thought about it just because they've thought about it so much. It's kind of a weird backwards universe, if you like. But yeah, I think there is so much to be taken from this season that we've seen that should give us encouragement, but also it's given us opportunities to know what we need, and I think that you've identified a lot of that. But Vijay, thank you so much.
I'll just leave you with one question that you can answer after the call. It's just like about your like, what is your opinion about the mentality situation? Because I feel like West Ham, the penalty goal that Saka missed, and I'm not blaming him. He's super young. He needs to adapt to this kind of like pressure. But at the same time, it was very giving that most of the time, like last time he missed a penalty was like the Euro final. And the next time he missed the final was like the missed penalty was now this. But Salah missed 2 penalties too this season, but I'm not like exclusively saying that. But the mentality of the people has to like get up, I feel like, a lot. Especially like and I think Odegaard needs to be considered to be a senior player now. And then you just need to like accept him to like lead from the front, like be the Kevin De Bruyne that we need, like that's it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think there is something to be said about the mentality after we lost some key players. And I think, to be honest, that will probably be addressed ironically with transfers, in the summer, and bringing in the depth and the competition. That's going to add, mental toughness in itself. So yeah, but yeah, I hope that answers your question. Thanks, mate, for jumping on.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.
You too, mate. Have a good one. Let's bring in Vegas Gunner to the conversation. Hello, mate. So I didn't mean to surprise you by jumping you on. How are you doing? You good?
I'm all right. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, very good. Where are you joining me from, my friend?
Vegas.
Vegas,
of course. I only catch you on the weekends because I work during the week. So usually, if I'm up Friday or Saturday night, I try to catch you. So.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. A lot of our foreign listeners who would tune in at ridiculous o'clock to tune in live, but get caught up anyway. I really do appreciate it. Tell me where your head's at. You've obviously been listening very patiently, and I appreciate that, and to what people have been saying. Tell me where your head's at.
For the most part, I think Edu's inexperience, and this is only my opinion, is holding Arteta back. I think we move slow in the market because of mistakes these past couple years that have tied up money that maybe if we had a little more, we could have got a couple of deals over the line. Like in Kedia, letting his contract run down and then signing him on for $100,000 a week. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to sell him, but who's going to take on that wage, Tom? I'm just curious.
No, I think it's a fair question. What I would say is that I think the $100,000 a week thing is being a bit overblown for a lot of people. But look, let me give you an example. Stuart Armstrong, Southampton striker, signed, I think, potentially from the Championship when they bought him. Do you want to guess how much he's on as a centre forward?
Tell me. Yeah, I don't know.
He's on close to £70,000 a week. And I'd say that Eddie Nketiah is a more proven Premier League goal scorer than him. There are other strikers that play lower down the table that are on upwards of 50, getting close to 100K. I think that the perception of that six-figure weekly sum, if it was like 90,000, maybe we wouldn't talk about it as much. But because it's 100,000, I think that puts extra emphasis on it. I see what you're saying, and I think that Reece Nelson might get put on a contract that's maybe not close to Nketiah, but probably around the 60 to 70,000 pound per week mark as well. Which, for a 23, 24-year-old playing for Arsenal, that's not wildly, out of this world, to be honest. In 2023, the contract thing, I think, under Edu, we've signed Gabriel, Aaron Ramsdale, Bukayo Saka twice, Gabriel Martinelli twice to brand new contracts. I think we've done pretty well with contracts. Balogun, we thought he was going to leave. With days left, got him on a brand new contract. And Nketiah, as you say, was going to leave. Potentially we can make 20-odd million quid plus on him because we signed him up to a new deal. Do you think maybe there's a misconception around the contract?
Yeah, I think we overpaid him because his contract ran down. Same with Reece. And like Vieira, 34 million for an injured player. I just think we overpaid for him too. And that money could have been spent to maybe get these deals over the line that we see that don't get done. And we kind of missed the mark by a few inches. I just think these little things like letting Leno go for such a small amount, Mari, another loss.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's taken so long for these other deals to get done, because I feel like the Cronkies are more of, you need to move some people out before we let you go for this guy or that guy. I just don't think the squad is going to be huge, and they probably need to move people before we do something. So Rice may be the only one for a while. That's just my thought for a few weeks, even if we get it done.
Yeah, I think the player sales thing is absolutely fair, and I've said that on the channel, and, listening to the channel, I think that we need to raise the expectation when it comes to how we sell players. I think a lot of it has in part been to do with the fact that the players we've let go of have not been good enough, and, the previous players that Edu inherited that we've had to move on haven't been good enough. But players like Marie that was signed under Edu, Lokonga, Tavares was signed, and we're probably going to make a loss on Lokonga. We're probably, if we were to sell Vieira, would make a loss on Vieira. Tavares, we should be able to make a profit on because we only bought him for like 7 million quid. But I think that this summer will be a real litmus test for Edu in terms of the sales, in terms of how much you would
tell me about the Cedric deal. I'm baffled by Cedric. 4 years.
That's actually more.
I don't think he's like the greatest player, but we loaned him out, and guess what happens a couple months after we loan him out?
You can't
Tommy
even get him.
gets hurt.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're getting to. So the Cedric.
Yeah.
You think we should have kept Cedric?
I don't. What did we gain? 3 million, 2 million by loaning him out.
I honestly, I don't really know the finances. What we got from that. I reckon I don't even know if we would have got any money from the loan deal, other than the fact that they would have taken on his wage. You're not the only person that said to me that we shouldn't have loaned Cedric. In a similar way, why we loaned Kolasinac that season when Tierney then got injured. I didn't,
Right, him too. I remember that same deal, and I'm just wondering, would we need to loan Cedric or Kolasinac out if we didn't make other mistakes where we needed to recoup some money? That's all I'm trying to say.
With all the respect in the world to Kolasinac and Cedric, they're not good enough for Arsenal.
Agreed.
They're not of the level to be starting for Arsenal in the Premier League. And frankly, if it was me and I had the choice of starting Cedric at right back and Partey at CDM, or Partey at right back and Jorginho at CDM, I'd start Partey at right back because I just don't trust Cedric at all. So the reason why I'm not, the reason why I said that I gave the point credits, because I know you're not the only person that's asking the question. But from my perspective, I haven't really got any criticism of the Cedric loan, because I think maybe we forget quite quickly how not that great he is.
He shouldn't even be here in the first place.
No, he shouldn't. And we should have got rid of him a long time ago. And I think that the things that we did at the start of Arteta and Edu's tenure were some mistakes. You think Edu, you think Cedric, you think Marie, you think Willian, Runnison, we made some mistakes at the beginning, in terms of players that we brought in. And I think that the longer that the Arteta and Edu have been at the club, the less and less mistakes we've made, and actually the more hits that we've begun to have in the market. You think about the deals that Arsenal have done in the last 2 years, representative to the first 1.5 of their tenure. Think about what we've done with Ramsdale, great signing; Ødegaard, great signing; White, great signing. You think about Jesus, if he was fit for the full season, I'd have been interested to see how many goals he would have scored. We talk about the fact that he can't score as much, but he got 11 Premier League goals and missed a third of the season. So I'm curious to see if he'd have managed to get close to 18 goals if he was here for those other 12 games. And if we'd have seen, and also Zinchenko, coming in and seeing what he could do. But not only that, but the improvement of existing players like Gabriel, who was obviously signed under Arteta and Edu as well. The improvement of Saka, of Gabriel Martinelli, of players we've signed like Ødegaard as well. The fact that we integrated Saliba into the team, and that didn't mean that we were talking about White or Saliba. We were talking about the fact that they've turned White into one of the best right backs in the league. And all of those things give me confidence. Actually, no, these guys are making some really, really good decisions, but they're not perfect. And I think you referenced Fabio Vieira, and that's an example of them not being perfect. What I would say is that when I speak to people about who they'd like to see signed this summer, I have people throw names at me from loads of different clubs. And to be honest, I feel as though if people had looked at Fabio Vieira's record at Porto the season before we bought him, they probably would have been saying someone like Fabio Vieira's name as well, because the numbers that he was producing for Porto.
I think we bought the wrong guy from Porto. The guy that went to PSG is a little better than Vieira, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a very good player. Yeah, I agree. We would have been better.
Around the same money too.
Do you know how much he signed for?
Ironically,
hear this. He signed for £34 million. So the exact same price as Fabio Vieira. So yeah, we probably signed the wrong guy from Porto.
So me personally, that's why I'm not that confident in Edu, but cautiously optimistic, I guess. But
yeah, do you think we've got more hits than misses under Edu and Arteta?
If you add in the early stuff, I don't think so. I think it's 50-50. I mean, what happened to Willian? He's here, and then all of a sudden he goes to Brazil and then comes back to Fulham. What was that all about? Weird things to me.
I'm going to play this game with you, Vegas Gunner. Can I call you by your proper name? I feel weird calling you Vegas Gunner.
Joe.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
Right, Joe, let's play this game.
Okay.
Gabriel Jesus, hit or miss?
Hit.
Fabio Vieira.
Miss.
You can play along, chat box. Alexander Zinchenko.
Hit.
Jakob Kivior. Shall we say jury's out? Shall we put jury's
Question
out?
mark. Question mark.
Jury's out for Kivior. Trossard.
Hit.
Jorginho.
Question mark for me.
Okay, fair enough. Matt Turner.
Another question mark.
Okay. Marquinhos.
Miss.
I'd agree. Ben White.
Hit.
Odegaard.
Hit.
Ramsdale.
Hit.
You thought about that for too long. Tomiyasu.
Question mark.
Oh, why question mark? Tell me.
Always hurt.
Right, but you don't sign a player and then they obviously get injured. I think that what we had from that first season of Tomiyasu was really solid. Yes, he had a couple of injuries, but he came in this season and played left back against Liverpool and shut out Nunez and Salah.
What about the back pass against City, though?
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Jury's out. I'll let you have it.
Yeah.
Okay. As Lakonga.
That's a miss, but
That's
I'm
a miss.
okay with throwing a $17 million dart, on a healthy guy. That's what Vieira was double the price and he was injured. I didn't get that one at all. Now he may end up good or okay for the club, but I'm really astonished by that. I don't get that one.
Let's go. I've lost my slide. There it is. Tavares. Oh, so we're putting miss on Lakonga. Yeah, we agreed that.
Yeah.
Tavares.
Miss.
It's got to be a miss. And Austin Trusted, we don't know anything about, so jury's
Right.
out on him. Thomas Partey.
Hit.
Gabriel Magalhaes.
Hit.
Pablo Marie.
Miss.
Cedric.
Miss.
Runarsson.
Miss.
Willian.
Miss.
Okay, and that is everything. Where do you
Wasn't
think...
David Luiz here too? Or was that before?
We renewed his contract under Arteta.
Then that's a miss. See?
Okay, so right, if you're going to play that
I
game...
said it was 50-50. I didn't say either way. I said 50-50 with me.
Okay, so if we're going to play contracts, then I'm just going to put Saka, Martinelli, Gabriel, Odegaard, these guys that are not Odegaard, but I'm just going to put all them down in the hits. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So if we're going to put contracts in there as well, I think we're going to put Nketiah as a miss. Tierney, I'd say, we've maintained his value. I'd still put him as a hit, even though we renewed his contract.
Yeah, but doesn't he have a sell-on clause with Celtic? Don't we owe them like 20%? I heard that. I don't know if it's true, but...
Oh, I didn't know that. That's an interest. I'm going to write that down. Tierney sell-on clause. Didn't know.
Mari supposedly has one too, to Flamengo.
Yeah, he definitely does. So yeah, we won't get the full of that as well. But I think when you look at the amount of hits and misses and juries out, what's interesting about the hits is that they're all the adding up to the investment of those players is significantly higher than the misses. So when we looked at those misses and we looked at Willian and Cedric and Runarsson and Marie, if we look at some of the others, Tavares, Lakonga, Matt Turner, Marquinhos, these are all players that cost us like next to nothing. But the investments, the real investments that we made, other than Vieira, when you think about that and you go Jesus, Zinchenko, Ben White, Odegaard, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, we were here and there on, Partey, Gabriel, all the players that we invested proper money in, we've got hits on. And I think that when let me ask you this real quick. So, and this is just speculation on my part because we don't know the ins and outs, but Mudryk, I guess, went for 65 million pounds and we came up short on the bid because we didn't want to go higher. But at the same time, we gave the Brazilian team $3 million for Marquinhos, like when we didn't have to. Like those are the things that I'm talking about where we missed by inches, but because of what? I don't think we missed by inches. I don't think that the 3 million we put on Marquinhos meant we couldn't get Mudryk. The 3 million euros we put into Sao Paulo was that we could have exploited something We could have exploited the fact that his contract was at a certain point and really annoyed Sao Paulo. But instead, what we did was we agreed a market value for what he was worth based upon the contract length that was left, paid that, and then maintained a relationship with a club that have produced the likes of Casemiro, David Neres. There's a couple of others that usually come to mind as well. Anthony, players that have really made huge amounts of money. So we maintain that good relationship with that club. And if we ever go back, we're not going to struggle to negotiate, you'd hope. So it's never going to be about, if we only had 3 million more, we could have got Mudryk, So, yeah. But I think we've comprehensively kind of covered the squad. And I just think the point to come from that is that when Arsenal have invested money, really invested money, we've mainly got hits, barring Vieira. Do you think we can agree on that?
Yeah, pretty much. But now you know why I'm hesitant on the deal.
I think that's fair. Yeah, but I think that
sometimes that's why I leave comments like, what's up with this guy? But,
and
I just feel we have Arteta's talented. He's still a young manager, and I think it hurts us that we have a young manager and a young director, both. So it's kind of like a learning curve.
I think that when we go into this summer, we're going to be looking to spend big money. Whoever we bring in, we're going to be looking to invest some serious money. And I take confidence from what we did in those previous deals that we spent big money on to tell me that when we spend big money, 90% of the time we're doing the good thing. Can we agree there?
Yeah, we can agree.
Smashing. Thank you for coming on the show, folks. I really appreciate that,
Joe. All right, my man. Have a good day.
Fantastic rest of your day.
Okay.
Enjoy it.
All right.
See you later.
You too.
Lovely stuff. That was Joe, aka Vegas Gunner. Really appreciate him jumping on the show and giving us his time. It's always good to see so many of you joining us in the chat box. I've got a good friend of mine, Dan Morphy. Thank you so much for joining me, and always appreciate your kind following of the channel. Dino, let's bring you into the conversation, my friend. How are we?
Very well, thank you, Tom. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, my friend. First of all, thank you for being so patient. I really appreciate you just waiting around and listening in patiently. Tell me where your head's at.
Tom, I come from an era where I remember seeing Van Persie score that wonder volley against Dortmund, and I was celebrating like mad and thinking that player isn't going to be with us next season. So if I look at the way we're approaching the summer this year, I'm really happy that we're in a position to set to, when West Ham's season ends, be going after one of the top players in Europe right now in his position. I think that is sort of what we've been told for the last few years, but trust the process is definitely where I'm at, because I've seen enough from Arsenal, even in January, to say that, there is a plan in place and we are working towards a clear end goal. On January as well, I know there's a lot of talk about certain, us missing out on key targets, but I would say that that's a normal part of football. And I was impressed at how we went from missing out on we went for Diaby, I think, initially. We missed out on him. Then we ended up with Trossard and Jorginho. I think both players performed really well, and the drop-off in performance was nothing to do with transfers. It was more to do with just the context of a long season, maybe a World Cup year as well. So with regards to Edu, I'm in a good place with him. I think he's done really well. We've built a good squad within the range of sort of 20 million to 55 million. And I think that, we've seen enough as Arsenal fans collectively to say we're working towards big things and the team is progressing.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think we're moving in the right direction, as you've summed up. When you said Van Persie won the goal, I was thinking he's going to say Charlton. He's going to talk about the Charlton goal. But then you said Dortmund, and I was like, that was a proper left field pick. But yeah, no, great strike. I think what do you make of Ken kind of the anger? Because, there are people, not just in the chat box, but obviously out in the social media, and you've heard, Brandon coming on today. You've heard Joe as well just a second ago talking about their concerns. What do you make of that?
I mean, I would place the concern. I would say our main challenge for this season is to come back and repeat what we've achieved this year. So for me, my outlook for this summer is we need to lay a foundation to say, okay, we can build from now and actually compete at this level. So for me, where I'm at in terms of anger, it's more like, okay, I trust the process. But I think, honestly, after a good summer this year where we add to the squad, we will learn a lot more about certain players in the team after a season in the Champions League. I watched Zinchenko once before he joined Arsenal, and I remember Timo Werner turning him inside out in the Champions League game. Gabi Jesus as well, he was sold. Maybe I don't really watch City, but maybe because he didn't compete at the level that the Champions League would require. So for me, I'm not necessarily concerned about it, but I am watching it with an interest, because I think we'll learn more about the squad and the players that we've invested in to get to that next stage. in this coming season. I think that this summer is really about focusing on what specific areas we can tweak the squad to start to say, right, let's get to that level and stay there. And the season after, I can see us really building and mounting proper title challenges or even further.
Who are you looking at this summer? I mean, let me change the question actually, because obviously I think you align quite a lot with my thinking on things, would be fair to say. Where I'm going to have my concern is if we don't land the priorities. You know, I've said on the show before, if we don't get either of Rice or Caicedo, then I'm not going to feel great, about where we're at in the window. If we are unsuccessful in getting one or the other of those two, where's your head going to be with the club and Edu and things like that?
I think I'll be disappointed naturally, like every other fan. I think Rice is a deal that we need to do. We probably needed him last season. If we weren't to get both, I'd say, okay, fair enough. One thing I will say is that I think that something that may not be considered enough is that the squad collectively have been exposed to the level. And I think that it was a really good time to be exposed to what City are capable of, because whilst, Newcastle are building like a bear with a sore bum, I can hear the sort of kettle going from the red side of Manchester. The teams are getting better around us, but I do feel that our young team will get better every single year. So I hope that answers your question in that way. I think either Rice or Caicedo would be enough for now. And then we'll see where we're at next season.
Who are your dream 5 signings for the summer?
5 signings. I'd go Rice. I'd say another centre-back, perhaps. I couldn't put a name on it. I would say maybe a right-sided midfielder and a right-back. I couldn't really think of names.
Don't blame you. It's tough.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I think mainly that's what I would be happy with. I think, a key to area targeting midfield is the main priority for Arsenal, I think. And maybe a right winger to take pressure off Saka.
Yeah, I think the right winger thing is interesting. As I was talking to Brandon earlier, I think the idea that you bring in someone that can compete with Bukayo Saka is going to cost you a superior amount of money, And when we've got the priorities in midfield and defence, we conceded 42 goals last season. That's not good enough. We need to concede less goals. So you need to address that. We conceded our record most, I think, goals in the Premier League with 88 last season. And that's great, But can we score more? Should we aim to score more? Absolutely. So if we can improve the forward line, I would. And I look more towards a centre forward than a wing, because Reece Nelson looks like he's staying. But yeah, I'd love to bring in a competitor to Saka, but I'm just not sure it's going to be feasible. But Dino, thank you so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Awesome. Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. Dino, we've got time for one more caller as well, and he sat the most patiently of them all. It's Elliot. How you doing, Elliot? You good? You well?
I'm well, sir. How are you? How is everybody doing? And great to speak to you again, Tom.
Is this your longest lunch break ever that you've had to wait on?
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Tell me where your head's at. You've obviously been able to listen to everything that's been said by everyone on the channel. You've heard concerns, you've heard frustrations, you've heard optimism as well, like Dino just now. Yep. Where's your head at?
I'm definitely on the cautious side this year. I think this is the season, this is the summer where Edu and the Cronkies will have their greatest examination. It's simply put, things are in Arsenal's favor. We are the new bright young things in Europe, and everybody wants to come to Arsenal. It is up to Arsenal to do their business in a cold yet calculating way. We need to be ruthless. We need to be, forthright in terms of our transfers and forthright in terms of our outgoings. We can't be held back. We're not held back by any constraints, and it's up to the Cronkies to see if they want to invest in this squad or not. It's as simple as that. And with Champions League money and with things going our way, it is time for Arsenal, Edu, and Cronkies in particular to show and prove. They have to give us value for money. We need a £200 million transfer window. We need to sell well. everything comes down to this because, listen, Liverpool's already loading up. Chelsea are on the outskirts, lurking and looking at our signings. And we need to get it right. We need to get it right this year. There's no doubt about that. And, I will be looking at Edu and I'll be looking at the Kroenkes to see how much they indeed, number one, they are in terms of being a technical director in terms of Edu's position, and also how much the Kroenkes are willing to invest in this squad. Because listen, there are other clubs. The Denver Nuggets are doing bang up business. They're probably going to win the NBA championship. The LA Rams have already won the Super Bowl. The Colorado Avalanche have already won the Stanley Cup. These guys, listen, the Kroenkes are in a very valuable position. The Kroenke
team won as well, didn't they?
Yes, what's
they
that?
have a lacrosse team that won.
Yeah, they're a lacrosse team one as well. They are in a very, very rich vein of form with all of their sports teams. It is time for Arsenal to get their just due. We have been, as I was saying to Curtis Shaw recently, we are the side piece. We are the after dinner menu. We are the.
I find that mad, though. I feel like I don't know why we would think that. We spent more than the club's ever spent in a season last season.
We understand that. But let's take a look at the other teams the Kroenkes have. Number one, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, and he plays for the Denver Nuggets, a Stan Kroenke owned team. We have the LA Rams, which won the Super Bowl with one of the best defensive linemen. I forget his name in NFL history. That is a Stan Kroenke owned team. If he wants to spend, he can spend. He spent not only on the stadium, he spent on the infrastructure, the transport system leading to the stadium, and also he's redoing Malibu for the World Cup. This just in. So the man has money. And he's already gone up another $2 billion in terms of his worth. This man has money. It's up to him if he wants to spend on this club, which is his legacy club. Arsenal Football Club are the oldest club he owns, quite simply, and it is the club to which he can bring to investors and say, "Hey, I have Arsenal Football Club. This is one of the oldest teams in world football. Invest in me, and I'll be able to do things for your club." He now needs to turn back to Arsenal. He has spent before. I'll give him that, but this is the year where he has no excuses. We're in the Champions League. It's not as if we're in the UEFA Cup or we're out of Europe and he has nothing for which he can stand on. He has something to stand on now. And now we have to look at Edu. Edu can get the big signings done. Let's face facts. He hasn't done it. You and you have self-confessed that yourself, Tom. And it is time for Edu to get in a Rice or Caicedo or both. I say he needs to get in both, quite simply, in order to make his claim, to stake his claim as being a man worthy of being a technical director with this club. It's examination season, and those two are the two examinees, to be fair, and we need to see results.
Yeah, a couple things. The whole big Edu can't. When did I say that he can't get the big signings done?
I believe you sent. I believe you said it a couple of shows. It was on one of your on one of your ADM shows. I believe it was in response to one of the questions from the audience that you had there. But
right. I mean, I think I would have said something on the lines of he has got a track record at the moment of us not getting the priority targets.
Yes.
And I think that whilst he absolutely has got that record of and hanging over him that Mudryk, Caicedo last January, Rafinha, Lisandro Martinez, these players we didn't get. However, what I would say is that our priority centre-back in 2021 was Ben White, and we got him. Our priority attacking midfielder that summer was Ødegaard. We got him. Our priority goalkeeper that window was Ramsdale. We got him. Our priority centre-back and central midfielders in 2020 were Partey and Gabriel. We got them. Last summer, our priority striker was Jesus. We got him.
Right.
We do get our priorities. We don't get all of them. And, with respect, nobody does. No one gets every single priority. Even Chelsea, even Man United, even Real Madrid, don't always get their priority. Sometimes they don't. And
True.
Man City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, less so than others. But Arsenal are getting back to that level where that number of ones that we miss out on comes down. So this summer, we may not get Rice and Caicedo. For me, we have to get one. Have to get one of those two. Because if we don't get either of those two in a summer that we have just got top two, we've got back into the Champions League, Chelsea are out of the Champions League, Liverpool are out of the Champions League, and they're the two teams that are going for us for Caicedo. We've got to beat them to it. We've got to try and beat them to Caicedo. We've got to try and get ahead in terms of the Rice race because of how much we put in. You can't waste that season. And also, on the whole, I still don't necessarily buy the Kroenke side of things. Yes, they've got some of the best players in the world at their things, but Martin Odegaard just equaled the record for non-penalty goals scored by a midfielder. He's our player. Kroenke bought him. William Saliba is the best young centre-back in the world. Kroenke bought him. So there is part of me that thinks we are signing those high-profile players. We're turning them into those high-profile players. The next step for us is signing up the high-profile players that already are high-profile, like Rice, like Caicedo are this summer. Get one of those two in, and it's a big, big boost. A big, big boost. And that's, I'll bring up this comment from Azat as well. And we'll finish on this, Elliot. Azat says, Tom, stop defending the club. Being positively minded is one thing, but Arsenal is slow. We have to admit. We need to show that we can sign our targets. Now, we are, Elliot, in June 5th, 10 days before the window opens, with the season not finished because we've still got 2 games left of the season.
Again, I'm not examining them now.
I know. I respect that.
Yeah.
It's just when it comes to the whole we're slow, we signed Jesus before our first friendly, last season. Our main priority in the window was brought in before we played a single bit of football in pre-season. And this summer, after the Conference League final, the indications is that we're putting in a £90+ million bid for Rice. That's the indications. That's the information that we have. I don't get the sense that Arsenal are being slow this window so far. Do you?
Well, I don't think they can afford to be. Lo and behold, you see Bayern Munich trying to go after a Rice. You see, Liverpool and also Chelsea going after a Rice. They're being pushed into action, quite simply. And getting back to your point about our prior signings of Odegaard, of Jesus, of Ben White. I mean, there wasn't much competition for these guys. It was pretty much a straight shoot in towards getting these guys. There was pretty much, a wink and a nod sort of deal, but it was an easier deal to deal with than the Rice and Caicedos of the world. That's why I'm saying this is where their mettle will be tested. Now, again, I don't say Arsenal is too slow because, again, as soon as the Europa League conference final is done, it's pretty much game on in terms of Declan Rice, and the competitors are circling, and we have the inside track, which is great. However, we need to get the deal done. We need to see that one is over the line, and then we can get the next over the line, because I think they have an eye on Caicedo. But but to be fair, to see Chelsea beat us out on Caicedo when we have the Champions League, when we have all the advantages, it's a bit of a slight on Arsenal that we can't get a deal done now that we're in Champions League. They have nothing to show for it. All the Chelsea can do is throw money at a problem, and it's a big problem they have over there. We need to be able to close these sort of deals, and not only that, I want our other targets that are out there. We need to see as well. But again, when you have the competition around you, when you have when margins are slim, especially against these other teams that can throw a lot more money, even though we can throw the money, but we won't spend it because Arsenal have a policy that we don't spend money unless it's well warranted for it.
True, though, isn't it? We spent more than any other team last. No, sorry,
we did. We did.
Than we have.
But we haven't spent big money. Now's the time we have to spend
72 million on Pepe and 50 million on White.
Okay, well, 70. Okay, well, Pepe, we spent big money, but that was dumb money anyway.
Well, hold on, you can't have it both ways.
No, we can't have it both ways. You're right. You're right. But again, it's not. It's one precedent, but we need to see more precedents. There, Tom. We have to see more precedents. This is a big club now, and big clubs have more than one precedent saying, okay, we spent 72 million. Well, other teams have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players they spent more, such money on. We need to be that club to say, okay, we just didn't spend on Pepe. We spent it on this guy and this guy and this guy. We need to see multiple examples of that. That's what a big club does. Real Madrid have those examples. PSG has those examples. Liverpool, even they have those examples. Man United have those examples.
And if I was to ask you, what's PSG's main goal as a club? What's their main goal?
to win the Champions League.
Right. Have they done that?
No, they haven't.
How much have they spent trying to do that?
Near a bit.
A ton, I nearly swore them, but a ton
they
of
said
money.
near a billion. I would say near a billion. Yeah, I would say near a billion. Absolutely.
And that's the thing, is that like it's not all about money, and the thing is, it's about how you spend it. I've just said to you about Pepe. We've tried spending big money, it's not always worked. And I think that what we talked about with Joe, and you were listening when we were talking about the hits and the misses of players, is that when we've chosen to invest and we've actually put money into players, 90% of the time it's gone well. Fabio Vieira is really the only example of a player where it's not really worked out. Lukonga, really. Less money, jury's out. We hopefully will get the money back on him. But Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Odegaard, Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Partey, Tierney. When we're spending money on players, look, it's going well. It's now about spending money on an even bigger level, as we've already, and we agree on this, is that we need to now go to the 80, 90 millions successfully, because that's what a team in 2023 that competes for titles has got to do. You've got to spend that amount of money on those types of players, and you've got to get those deals done. And that's why, as I've said to a number of people tonight, Elliot, is that I'd love to reconvene at the end of the summer transfer window, see what the business was, see Absolutely. What we did, and come back and talk about it as, hopefully, fingers crossed, because that's, I know what we all want, is that Arsenal to succeed. So, yeah, that's probably a great way to leave it. Have you got any final thoughts?
Well, again, as I was saying, in order to catch Man City, you got to spend big, because they spent big. They are the financial dopers of the decade, quite simply, and they won't be brought up on the charges. But at the end of the day, we need to catch them. In order to catch them, we need to spend money, big dough. And if the Cronkies don't see that, and if Edu doesn't get the deals done, what are we to say? What do we owe? How are we to resolve things? Yes, they spend money on good players, and listen, that's why we trust. I trust Arteta's eye for talent, but it's time. So Arteta is out of the picture here in terms of bringing in talent, because he's the one who usually identifies them. It is the examination of the Cronkies and Edu this summer. Can they get deals done over the line with multiple teams competing for these players? If they can do it, then hey, now we have a better squad and we're better for it come August when the season begins. When I will be in England actually at that time, so again, nice. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm looking forward to maybe seeing you at one of the matches. But well, maybe the first match. Are we at home the first match? I don't know, but anyway.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet, so that's what I'm saying. So I hopefully it's a home match, and hopefully I can get down to the match and see you all there. But that is where we stand. I'm withholding judgment now. We have to see what happens. But at the end of the day, if it's up to the Cronkies and Edu to get the deals done, and it starts really in earnest on Wednesday after on Thursday after the Europa Conference League final.
Indeed, Elliot, thank you so much for jumping on and giving me your time. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much. Great work and continued success.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. See you later. Massive appreciation to not just Elliot, but every single caller that's jumped onto today's show. I appreciate every single one of them. It's the point of the whole channel is to invite people on the show that don't always share the same view as me, because it's important that we don't surround ourselves with the same point of view, because otherwise we'll be living in an echo chamber and never ever evolving our views on anything. So it's always great to do that. And I'd say 99% of the people in the chat box have been fantastic as well at appreciating and respecting the viewpoints that have come in as well. I want to do, obviously, I'm going to be doing more phone-in shows across the course of the transfer window. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be mad. And it's kind of why we love it. It's the transfer window in some ways. I really hope that we're swift, we're ruthless, we're aggressive. That's what I want to see. And it certainly will give us plenty of reason. I also hope that those of you that, are absolutely battering Arsenal and Edu and Arteta and the Cronkies, whoever, are here, at the end of the window, if we've done well, to say, you know what, Tom, fair play. I was wrong. They did really, really well. Because that I'm going to be here at the end of the window if we've not done those things, saying this isn't good enough. And that'll be the case. So I hope that we can all reconvene at the end of the summer transfer window, all laughing and joking about the fact that we've had an amazing window. I really hope that's the case. Thank you ever so much, everybody that's listened and tuned in. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll be back as usual tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. UK time, giving you all the latest updates regarding the last 24 hours of Arsenal transfer news. Thank you. I will see you again very soon. Have a fantastic day. And as always, I was going to say keep following us down the Arsenal way. That's twice I've done that in the space of a week. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you everybody for listening. I'll see you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.